Hey there, and welcome back. Tonight, we're going to step into a world few people ever truly see, a world of frozen winds, endless skies, and the soft crunch of hooves across the snow-covered steppe. We're heading back to 1600 Siberia, a place as remote and unforgiving as it is breathtaking, to discover what life was like for the nomadic reindeer herders who called it home. These weren't just people surviving in the cold, they were thriving, carving out a life in one of the harshest environments on Earth. Their days were shaped by the rhythm of the reindeer herd, the change of the seasons, and the wisdom passed down through generations. They battled wolves, snowstorms, and bitter cold, all while living in close-knit communities that depended on trust, tradition, and resilience. In this video, we'll follow their footsteps through blizzards and migrations, into yurts filled with smoke and story, and into the quiet mystery of the taiga. What did they eat? How did they stay warm? What did they believe about the spirits in the snow? So wrap yourself in something warm, settle in, and let's explore what it was really like to herd reindeer in 1600 Siberia. You wait before the sun rise. Not that it ever rises very far here. The sky is a deep, washed-out gray, stretching forever over the flat, white land. You can already hear the wind outside the yurt, moaning as it rushes across the tundra, tugging at the felt walls, testing the seams. The air inside the tent is bitterly cold, despite the embers still glowing faintly in the fire pit. You can see your own breath. Your hands, wrapped in fur mittens, move stiffly as you pull on your outer layers of reindeer hide. Everything out here begins with the cold. You step outside, and the wind hits your face like a sheet of knives. It never truly stops, not out here. It whistles over frozen rivers, snakes between the sparse black pines of the taiga, and scours across the snow-laden plains until even the reindeer lower their heads and turn away. The tundra stretches in every direction, featureless and massive, broken only by the herds and the stunted silhouettes of distant trees. You squint into the distance, looking for movement. A dark smudge against the snow might be wolves, or one of your own, scouting the herd. Or nothing at all, just your eyes playing tricks in the cold. You were born into this landscape, this way of life. Others might see it as bleak, but to you, it's home. The wind doesn't scare you anymore. It's always been there howling as you learn to walk, screaming around your yurt as your mother stitched fur garments, whistling through the horns of reindeer as you chased them across the snow. You know its moods, its warnings. When it drops suddenly, you know a storm is coming. When it shifts direction, the herds will move. You listen to it the way others listen to elders. The landscape itself teaches you to pay attention. There are no roads here, no signposts, no maps-only memory, sky, and instinct. You learn to read the snow, to understand the depth and softness beneath your feet. Too soft, and the sleds will sink. Too hard, and the reindeer will hesitate. You look to the clouds. Thick and low means heavy snow, while long, wispy threads stretching across the horizon tell you the wind is preparing to change direction. Navigation isn't about landmarks. It's about watching the world breathe. And out here, you are never truly alone. The herd is nearby. You can feel it. A low murmur of hooves and bells. The occasional grunt or snort carries across the wind. Each reindeer wears a small bell tied carefully to its harness or collar. And you know the sound of your herd like you know your own heartbeat. You've grown up among them. You've named many of them, though the names are quiet things spoken only between you and the animal. They are everything. You do not simply keep reindeer, you move with them, survive with them, depend on them. Their hides become your clothing. Their milk becomes your food. Their antlers become tools. Their strength pulls your sleds across frozen rivers and through thick snowdrifts. And in return, you protect them, guide them across the wilderness, shelter them during storms, guard them from predators. Your people have lived this way for generations. Without the reindeer, you are nothing. With them, you are part of the land itself. You climb a ridge, one of the few small rises in this otherwise flat world. From here, you scan the horizon. The cold is deep enough that your eyelashes freeze together when you blink. The snow creaks beneath your boots-old, dry snow that's been packed and repacked by wind. You spot movement to the north, the herd grazing among a line of lichen-covered rocks. Their noses dig into the snow, searching for the soft gray moss that grows just beneath the surface. The strong ones find it quickly. The young ones follow, mimicking their elders. Behind you, smoke begins to curl from the yurt's chimney. The others are waking. Your family, your clan, a small group of yurts arranged in a loose circle, no fences. No walls, just felt-covered frames stitched with sinew and faith. You know each person here by their footsteps, their way of speaking, the way they handle the reindeer. No one is idle. The youngest tend the fire and help warm the milk. The elders mend harnesses or tell stories that remind you why the spirits of the wind must be respected. Stories matter out here. They're not just entertainment and warnings, memories, maps passed down without ink or paper. You remember the tale of the boy who wandered too far during a storm and listened to the wrong wind. He followed it until he walked off a cliff, mistaking the snow-covered sky for flat land. Your grandmother told that one every winter. She said the wind remembers everything. If you listen closely, it might tell you how to get home, or how to get lost. You begin to walk toward the herd, your sled runners whispering over the ice-crusted snow. The reindeer lift their heads as you approach, their dark eyes calm but watchful. You speak to them softly, not words, exactly, but sounds and patterns they recognize. You move slowly. Reindeer don't like surprises. You count them without counting, letting your eyes sweep over the group, matching movements to memory. One is missing, a small doe with a crooked ear. You scan the horizon again, your body suddenly tense. If she's wandered too far, the wolves might find her before you do. You move quickly now, shifting your weight as you steer the sled down a shallow slope. The wind claws at your face, but you barely notice it anymore. You've lived too many winters to fear this kind of cold. What you fear is silence, true silence, because it means the bells have stopped ringing. And when the bells stop ringing, it's already too late. You find her eventually, trapped between a thicket of frozen brush and a low drift, her legs tangled in an old root. You calm her with a hum, gently cutting the snare with your knife, your breath steaming in front of your face. She shivers but doesn't bolt. She knows you. You guide her back to the herd slowly, the sled creaking behind you, the sky dimming as dusk creeps in from all sides. By the time you return to camp, the fires have grown strong again. You smell milk heating over coals, hear the low murmur of voices sharing the day's news. Children laugh, wrapped in oversized coats. A woman hums as she stitches a tear in a fur mitten. The wind howls outside the camp, but inside, life goes on. Out here, among the tundra winds, there is no luxury, no ease. Every step is earned. Every moment demands attention. But you wouldn't trade it for anything, because in this frozen world of ice, wind, and hooves, you belong. And that's everything. You don't look at reindeer the way others might look at livestock. Out here, they are more than animals. They are the reason your family survives each winter. They carry your sled across the snow. Their hides keep you warm. Their milk fills your bowl. Their bones and sinews shape your tools, and their instincts, more than any map, guide your movements through the wild. To be born into a herding family in 1600s, Siberia means growing up not just beside reindeer, but with them, as if they are another branch of the family tree. Long before you can remember, someone placed you on a reindeer's back, your small fingers gripping the thick fur at its shoulders. Before you knew the names of the stars, you knew the rhythm of hooves in snow, the pitch of each reindeer's bell, the slight twitch in their ears that meant danger. You didn't learn these things through lessons or books. You learned by watching, by walking among them, by mimicking your elders, and by listening, not just with your ears, but with your whole body. Each reindeer has its own personality. You know which ones are nervous and need a soft voice, which ones are leaders, and which ones will always lag behind unless nudged. You know which bucks can be trusted to pull the sled without straying, and which does tend to wander near the tree line, drawn by instinct or memory. It's not about dominance, it's about understanding. A bond born of time, routine, and quiet observation. You don't name them all, not formally, but there are nicknames you and your siblings whisper between yourselves. The one with the dark patch over her eye, the buck with the broken horn, the one who always circles back before the others. You don't speak of them sentimentally. This is a hard land, and life is often brief, but you respect them deeply. Their health is your health, their strength your survival. In the early mornings, before the wind has picked up and before the sky has turned from black to gray, you go out to check the herd. You listen before you see. The muffled thump of hooves shifting in snow, the creak of harness straps, the jingling bells, each with a slightly different tone. You know when something is wrong immediately, when the harmony of sound is broken, or when one bell is missing from the chorus. That's how you find the sick or injured, not by inspection, but by absence. Reindeer, you've come to learn, are creatures of pattern. They follow the wind, the smell of lichen, the feel of ice beneath their hooves. If you let them, they'll lead you to what they need. And if you watch closely, you'll begin to sense the coming weather in the way they move, restless before a storm, quiet and still before a hard freeze. You trust them more than you trust the sky. Herding isn't loud. It's not about barking commands or chasing animals in a frenzy. It's a slow, deliberate dance. You guide with presence, not pressure. A glance, a step to the left, a quiet hum in your throat to remind them you're near. You learn that sometimes the best way to lead is from behind, watching, steering gently, letting the herd decide the pace. There's wisdom in their rhythm that no human can replicate. You've seen other animals break down in this climate, horses struggling in deep snow, dogs freezing at night, but reindeer were built for this place. Their hooves spread wide for walking atop snow, their thick fur insulates even their noses, and their eyes shift to see in the long twilight. They are, in every sense, part of the land. Watching them is like watching the tundra move. But even as they seem self-sufficient, they rely on you too. In deep winter, when the snow crusts over the moss and lichen they depend on, you guide them to softer ground. You break through the ice so they can reach the food below. You carry salt and dried moss in your sled in case they grow too thin during migration. You help birth their calves, rub life into trembling newborns with your hands, and wrap them in hide until they find their footing. When a reindeer dies, whether from age, injury, or cold, it is never wasted. Its meat is dried or boiled, its hide tanned for clothing or shelter, its sinew used for thread, and its antlers carved into tools or left at sacred places as offerings. But it's not a simple matter of using every part. It's an act of gratitude. You learned from your grandmother that when you take a life, you leave something behind. A piece of bread, a chant, a feather, something to balance the taking. Your clothes are stitched from their hides. When you wrap yourself in your winter coat, you're wrapping yourself in 1,000 nights of shared migration. When you sleep on a reindeer skin beside the fire, the smell is familiar, comforting in the way only memory can be. The warmth doesn't just come from the fur. It comes from the connection. You carry the herd with you, even when you're away from them. You've ridden them across rivers so cold your breath froze on your eyelashes. You've trusted them to pull your sled through whiteouts when even the sun vanished. You've listened to their breathing as you camped beneath a snow-laden pine, your fire dying low, your face wrapped in hide to fight the frost. In those moments, when the world is silent and endless and terrifying, the reindeer beside you is your anchor. Its steady presence is a kind of courage. The bond between herder and reindeer isn't written in words. It's forged in frost and fire, in long migrations and quiet nights, in shared instincts and quiet gratitude. You don't train them the way someone trains a pet. You live with them. You move with them. You listen to what they're telling you, not just through sounds, but through posture, movement, silence. As you grow older, you realize that this bond is your inheritance. Not land or coin, but knowledge intimate, lived, hard-earned. Your grandfather never wrote anything down, but he passed on 1,000 lessons in the way he moved through the herd, in the way he whistled a certain tune to calm a skittish buck, in the way he looked to the sky before deciding to move camp. You carry those lessons forward, etched not on paper, but in muscle memory and instinct. When you walk among the reindeer now, they part around you, their breath rising like mist, their eyes meeting yours in quiet recognition. You don't just raise reindeer. You belong to them, just as they belong to you. And in a world where everything changes, from the weather to the rules of distant kings, this bond is the one constant you can rely on. The yurt is more than a home, it's the center of your world. In the endless white of the Siberian tundra, where the wind howls day and night, and the cold never truly loosens its grip, the yurt is safety, warmth, family, and memory. You push aside the flap of stitched hide and step inside, greeted at once by the soft crackle of the fire and the thick, musky scent of smoke and reindeer fur. Your eyelashes are still crusted with frost. Your hands ache from the cold. But here, inside these felt-lined walls, life slows down. The fire pit sits at the center, a shallow ring of stones holding glowing embers and blackened logs. Above it, the roof slopes upward into a cone, and near the peak, the smoke hole remains open, letting the fire's breath twist upward and escape into the gray sky. It's a clever design primitive to an outsider, but perfected by generations. The smoke leaves, but the heat stays. You sit near the edge of the fire, letting your fingers thaw. Your mittens, soaked from herding, are already drying beside the flames, sending up the faint scent of singed wool. Your mother moves around the space with practiced ease. She doesn't need to see clearly to know where everything is. Bowls, knives, hide cords, dried fish, strips of smoked meat, each item has its place, and there's no room for waste. Every corner of the yurt serves a purpose. Beneath the sleeping mats, tools. Above the door, ropes and herbs. Along the wooden lattice that supports the walls, clothing bundles, dried moss for kindling, medicinal supplies. It's tight, but not cramped. The space wraps around you like a cloak. You've spent your whole life here, in yurts like this one. As a child, you traced the patterns in the felt walls with your fingers. You counted the wooden poles that held up the roof and tried to guess how many stitches it took to hold it all together. You slept beside the fire, listening to your father's breathing and the quiet sounds of your mother grinding dried roots into powder. You learned to crawl on furs and walk on packed earth. This is the rhythm of your life. Meals begin and end with the fire. Reindeer milk heats in a blackened pot while steam rises and softens the cold air. You're handed a cup, thick with fat and warmth. It tastes slightly sour, but your body craves it after hours outside. Your sister peels back a flap of bark to reveal salted fish, and your grandfather, seated cross-legged by the warmest part of the fire, slices dried meat with a knife that's older than you are. Conversation flows between sips and bites quiet, unhurried. No one speaks more than they need to. The yurt listens too. The walls are made from thick layers of felt, rolled tightly and stitched with sinew. The outer layer repels water. The inner keeps warmth trapped inside. In deep winter, your breath fogs even indoors, and ice crusts the corners where wind sometimes sneaks through. But you know how to seal the seams with extra fur, how to block the base with stones, how to keep the fire just hot enough without filling the room with smoke. These are skills passed down without a word, just through watching, doing, adjusting. At night, the fire dims to glowing coals. You lie beside your siblings, wrapped in furs, your head resting on a rolled hide, your feet tucked toward the center to catch any lingering warmth. Outside, the wind wails like a lost creature. Snow taps softly on the yurt side, but inside, it's still. Your father's snore is steady. Your mother shifts, sighs, murmurs in her sleep. A baby cries briefly, then settles again. You listen to it all like you would a lullaby. Familiar, reassuring, constant. The smoke hole is always above you, a silent witness. During the day, it lets in light. At night, it frames the stars faint and icy, scattered like grains of salt across the black. Sometimes you wake and watch the stars move through that small circle of sky, measuring time the old way. You remember stories your grandmother told you, that spirits move through the smoke hole, entering and leaving in silence. That the ancestors watch from above, their faces hidden in the stars. That the fire, when left to burn alone, can speak. You don't question those stories. In this land, belief and survival go hand in hand. There's power in the old ways. Before entering the yurt, you brush snow from your boots. Not just to keep the floor dry, but because snow carries spirits. Before adding wood to the fire, you thank it aloud. Not out of habit, but out of respect. The fire gives warmth, cooks food, dries clothes, keeps darkness at bay. But if disrespected, it can turn deadly. A spark caught in the wrong corner, a log left burning too long. You've heard the stories. When guests arrive, rare, but welcome the yurt becomes both home and hall. The fire is stoked higher. Extra mats are rolled out. A special piece of dried meat is brought down from the rafters, saved for moments like this. Conversation stretches longer. Your father offers the guest milk or fish or tobacco. Your mother moves quietly, preparing more than usual. The guest removes their boots and places them neatly by the door. Hospitality is sacred. In a land this harsh, no one survives alone. Ceremonies happen here too. You've seen your aunt give birth in this space, her cries swallowed by the felt walls. You've watched your grandfather chant beside the fire, calling on spirits during illness, his eyes closed, his drum low and steady. You've whispered farewells to the dead here, laying out their garments before a final burial in the snow. The yurt holds all of it. Life, death, ritual, routine. The fire bears witness. Sometimes, during blizzards, days pass without anyone stepping outside. The storm beats against the yurt like a drum. Snow piles up against the entrance. You stay inside, stoking the fire, oiling roots, telling stories. Children play with carved bone toys. Elders nap, wrapped in thick hides. The outside world disappears, replaced by a cocoon of flickering light and quiet voices. You feel the yurt shift and creak, but it holds. It always does. And in that silence, you're reminded again why the fire is sacred. Even when the weather is good, even in summer, the yurt remains your anchor. Other things may change the route you travel, the size of the herd, the shape of the sky, but the yurt stays the same. The same structure your parents used, their parents before them. You can take it down in an hour, roll it, pack it, carry it on a sled, but wherever you raise it again, it becomes home. And when you grow old, and your hands grow slow, and your children build their own fires and tend their own yurts, you'll still remember the smell of smoke and fur, the flicker of firelight on faces, the feel of thawing fingers beside the hearth. You'll remember how life unfolded around that center flame, how everything began and ended there. The yurt is not just shelter from the cold. It is a living thing, a keeper of stories, a protector of warmth, a silent witness to everything you are. The wind always tells you when it's time to move. Not in words, not in signs you can point to, but in the way the herd begins to shift uneasily, in the way the snow crusts harder underfoot, in the way the lichen grows sparser beneath the hooves. You feel it in your body, a tightening, a restlessness that creeps into your fingers. You know the season is changing, even if the sky hasn't yet. And when the reindeer start to look toward the horizon instead of grazing, you know it's time. Your life as a nomadic herder doesn't follow a calendar. It follows the rhythm of the land, the migrations of the herd, and the demands of survival. Spring, summer, autumn, and winter are not gentle transitions. They are events, each demanding their own pace, their own preparations, their own sacrifices. Each one means packing up the yurt, loading the sleds, rounding the reindeer, and setting off toward a place you might not see again for months. Your world moves in great loops over the tundra, like circles drawn in snow. Spring is the hardest. It teases warmth, then snatches it away. The ice begins to crack beneath the rivers, and the snow softens into a slush that clings to your boots and weighs down the sled runners. The reindeer grow thin after the long winter. Their fur begins to shed, patchy and rough, and the calves are born, shaky-legged and blinking into the low sunlight. You don't move far at first, just enough to reach better forage, where the moss lies under thinner snow. You travel slowly, letting the weakest catch up, keeping the herd tight and calm. Packing the yurt is an ordeal. Every item fur bedding, bone tools, bundles of dried meat, the cooking pot, the fire stones is wrapped and secured. The felt walls are rolled tightly, the wooden frame disassembled and tied with sinew. It all fits on sleds, but barely. Your whole life becomes a caravan, creaking across the melting tundra, pulled by reindeer who know the path even when you don't. Children ride bundled in furs, their faces peeking out to watch the land change. You follow rivers and ridges, seeking higher ground where the snow melts faster. Sometimes the path is clear. Other times you must backtrack, circle around a flooded stream or a patch of rotten ice. You don't complain. The land doesn't listen. You just adjust, press forward, one step at a time. At night, the yurt is pitched again. The fire burns low, and you sleep with your boots still damp, listening to the ice shift and groan under distant lakes. By summer, the world is transformed. Grass sprouts through thawed soil. Birds return to sing in the willows. Insects buzz in thick clouds, clinging to every patch of exposed skin. The reindeer are stronger now, their coats sleek and their calves growing fast. The rivers run freely, clear and cold. You travel faster, further, sometimes covering great distances in just a few days. There is more food now for you, for the herd. You fish in the shallows, gather berries, dry herbs under the sun. The yurt smells of smoke, moss, and fresh hide. But summer is short. The warmth never lasts long enough. By late August, the days are shrinking. The wind picks up again, sharper now, whispering warnings. The sky takes on that strange, metallic color that always comes before the first frost. And again, the restlessness begins. Autumn is the time of fattening both for the reindeer and for you. Every meal counts. You dry fish and meat in long, thin strips, storing them in bark-lined bundles. You dig pits to bury roots. You tan hides with smoke and scrape them smooth. The herd eats constantly, sensing what's to come. Their breath hangs in the air, even in daylight. You wrap your hands tighter, your coat thicker. You sleep closer to the fire. The move to the winter grounds is the longest migration of all. It takes weeks, sometimes more, depending on snow, wind, and how well the herd holds together. You wake before dawn, when the stars are still bright. You feed the fire, check the sleds, and whistle for the reindeer. The bells begin to ring. It's a sound you associate with motion, with forwardness, with the slow pulse of survival. You travel through terrain you've known since childhood: frozen lakes, pine forests, tundra fields where the lichen spreads in pale gray webs. You recognize certain trees, certain rock outcroppings. But the land is never quite the same. A riverbank might have collapsed during the thaw. A familiar clearing might be blocked by fallen timber. Even so, your body knows the way, and the reindeer always seem to find it, even through whiteouts and storms. Sometimes during migration, you camp in temporary shelters, just a tarp stretched over poles, a fire dug into the snow. The yurt is packed for longer stops. You huddle close with your family, warming your hands over a flickering flame, telling stories, waiting for the blizzard to pass. There are nights you don't sleep at all, just listen to the wind screaming and the reindeer shifting nervously in the dark. Winter grounds are chosen carefully. There must be enough moss, enough shelter from the wind, and ideally, a nearby water source that doesn't freeze solid. When you find the right place, it feels like returning. You unpack with practiced movements, building the yurt once more, driving stakes deep into frozen earth. The reindeer circle, graze, settle. You breathe a little easier for now. But winter itself is unrelenting. Temperatures plunge below -50 degrees Celsius. The snow hardens, the wind howls for days without pause, and even the reindeer move less, conserving strength. You wear layer upon layer of fur. You eat fat, drink broth, and keep the fire alive at all costs. Every task is harder now. Fetching water means breaking through inches of ice. Simply stepping outside means risking frostbite. And yet, you do it. Every day. Because there's no other option. Time becomes strange in winter. Days are short, nights endless. The sky glows purple for a few hours, then fades into darkness again. You count time by the fire's need, by how much wood remains, by the weight of the meat stores. You tell more stories. You carve, mend, prepare. You dream of spring, but you don't speak of it. The cold has ears. Then one morning, you step outside and feel a change. The wind has softened. The snow no longer creaks with each step. A single bird call breaks the silence. The herd begins to move more freely. And in your chest, you feel the old stirring again. The restlessness, the pulse, the knowledge that it's time. You return inside, look at your family, nod once. It's time to move. Again, always. You don't remember the first time you touched a reindeer. It happened long before memory settled into words. Maybe when you were still wrapped in fur, cradled in your mother's arms, while she reached down to calm a restless buck or untangle a harness. The bells jingled long before lullabies ever reached your ears. The rhythm of hooves in snow was the music you grew up with, steady and sure, like a second heartbeat. To be born among reindeer in 1600s, Siberia, meant being born into a life already in motion. Before you could walk, you were bundled and tied to a sled, pulled across the tundra as the herd moved toward lichen-rich ground. While other children might take their first steps on floorboards, your feet touched packed snow and frozen moss. The first thing you learned wasn't a word, it was balance. You rode reindeer before you spoke full sentences. The reins were your toys, the herd your playground. By the age of 3, you could name the best grazing spots. By 5, you knew how to listen for danger in the silence of the herd. And by 7, you were part of the daily work. There was no ceremony to it, no moment where someone sat you down and said, "Now you're old enough." You simply began. You followed your older siblings, took a stick in hand, and nudged the slower calves along. You stayed close to your mother or your uncle, watching their movements, copying their sounds, learning without needing to be taught. Tasks came naturally. You carried water from the river, wrapped in layers of fur to protect you from the wind. You fetched wood or moss for the fire. You learned to strip bark from trees, to patch tears in clothing with sinew, to chew softened leather before stitching it into boots. Every task had a rhythm, and children weren't spared from the work, not out of cruelty, but because every pair of hands mattered. Your contribution, even small, helped the family survive. Your toys were shaped by the life around you. Small reindeer carved from bone, dolls made of hide and moss, knuckle bones turned into dice. Games taught you skills without you realizing: how to throw, how to aim, how to read signs in the snow. You and your siblings invented stories about the herd, naming calves and pretending they had secret lives when you weren't watching. But beneath the games was always preparation. Every day was a lesson, every moment a practice run for adulthood. You learned early how to ride bareback, to lean forward on the rise and back on the descent. The reindeer weren't gentle ponies. They were strong, alert, fast, and prone to panic if startled. You had to be quick, calm, and quiet. You spoke to them in low tones, just like your father did. You learned which ones would bolt and which ones would wait. You learned not to cling too tight, it spooked them. You learned to fall and to get back up before anyone teased you for it. You also learned fear, not from harsh discipline, but from the world itself. You learned how easily a child could get lost in a snowstorm. You heard the stories of wolves picking off a calf, or worse, a person. You saw what happened when someone walked too close to the river, thawing edge, or mishandled the fire in the yurt. The lessons were real, etched into memory with a sharp edge. But they weren't meant to frighten you. They were meant to keep you alive. Your education didn't come from books. You didn't sit in rows or recite lessons. Your teachers were your parents, your grandparents, the herd, the wind. You learned to count by measuring lengths of rope or bundles of kindling. You learned direction by the sun's arc and the feel of moss on tree trunks. You didn't write, but you memorized chants, stories, songs. You carried your people's history not in ink, but in voice. There was joy, too, threaded into the cold. You laughed as you slid down snowbanks on scraps of hide. You sang with your siblings as you helped guide the herd. You listened with wide eyes as your grandfather told stories of spirits who traveled through the smoke hole, or reindeer who spoke in dreams. You watched your mother braid her hair before the mirror of a frozen stream. You slept beside your family in a circle, wrapped in warmth, the fire's glow painting stories on the yurt walls. When a calf was born, you were there to help dry it, to watch it stumble to its feet, to learn how to mark it with a small cut on the ear, your family's sign. When a reindeer was lost or injured, you joined in the search, walking alongside the adults, scanning the hills, listening for that familiar bell. You understood grief, even young. When a beloved animal died, you helped skin it, clean the meat, tan the hide. You watched your elders burn a tuft of fur or leave behind an antler as a sign of respect. There was no shielding you from death, because death was part of the cycle, as ordinary as birth. And in that cycle, you saw not just loss, but continuity. The hide became clothing, the meat, food, the antlers, tools. Nothing wasted, nothing forgotten. You weren't raised to see yourself as separate from the herd or the land. You were part of it. The reindeer weren't pets, they were kin. They didn't need your love. They needed your understanding, your respect. You learned to walk softly, to watch quietly, to act decisively. You learned how to patch a sled, how to tether a nervous doe, how to find moss under thick snow. These were not chores. These were acts of belonging. And as you grew, you took on more. You helped pitch the yurt. You stayed awake during storms, listening for signs of distress. You tended to newborn calves on your own, your mother watching silently from a distance, waiting to see how you handled it. You didn't notice when the games stopped and the real work began. It just happened. You became a herder, not in a single moment, but through 1,000 small acts. You carried the old knowledge, how to follow the stars, how to read the land, how to care for the herd as though it were your family, because it was. You didn't dream of leaving. There was nowhere else to go, nowhere else that would feel like this wide, open, endless, cold, alive. And years later, when you have children of your own, you'll do the same. You'll tie them into the sled. You'll let them tug at the reins. You'll all show them how to whisper to a skittish buck and how to fall from the saddle without panic. You'll teach them not with lectures, but by doing, walking, riding, listening, because this is how children are raised among reindeer, not taught, but grown, like moss under snow, steady and slow, and deeply rooted in the rhythm of the land. You wake before the sun. The cold bites at your cheeks as you slip on your furs, tighten your boots, and step outside the yurt. The herd is still just shapes in the blue morning light, huddled together against the wind. Your breath clouds the air. There's silence, but it's not peaceful. It's too quiet. Something is wrong. You can feel it before you can name it. A kind of tension that ripples through the ground, through your bones, through the herd. You scan the edge of the clearing, where the snow meets the trees, and then you see it just a flicker, a broken branch, a dark shape against the white, and then it's gone. This is life-herding reindeer in the Siberian north. You're not just a caretaker. You're a defender. And the threats come in many forms, some with fangs, some on 2 legs, all deadly. Wolves are the most constant danger. They travel in packs, fast and clever, and they know the herd better than most humans do. You've seen what they can do, how they work as one to single out a calf or a weakened adult, how they slip in and out under cover of darkness or storm. They don't growl or howl before they strike. They don't need to. Their silence is their sharpest weapon. You've learned to spot wolf tracks from 50 paces. 4 oval pads in a tight row, no drag mark from the tail. Their prints are neater than dogs, more purposeful. You can tell how many there are, which direction they came from, how fast they were moving. Sometimes the tracks circle the camp. Sometimes they dive in toward the herd and vanish just as quickly. You kneel and run your hand over the print, feeling the edges, the depth. It tells you more than words ever could. You carry a long spear when you check the perimeter, not because you expect to fight, but because you might have to. It's not bravery, it's necessity. If you're close enough to see their eyes, you're already too late. But sometimes you must stand between a calf and the dark. Sometimes you must shout and wave fire and hope that's enough. Other times, it's not wolves. It's bears. Bears are slower, clumsier, but far more dangerous up close. They don't usually hunt reindeer unless food is scarce, but when they do, they come with terrifying force. One swipe of a paw can break a leg, flip a sled, tear through hide and bone. You've heard of herders who didn't get out of the way fast enough, found days later in pieces, the remains scattered like driftwood. Bears leave broader tracks 5 toes, claws showing clearly in the snow. You hope not to see them, especially in early spring when they're hungry and reckless after the long winter. If the reindeer smell a bear nearby, they become agitated, pacing, snorting, bunching close together. You learn to read those signs too. The herd tells you what you need to know, if you listen. But not all predators walk on 4 legs. Sometimes the danger is human. Poachers, thieves, raiders. Not often, but often enough to keep you wary. They come not for food, but for hides, antlers, and the reindeer themselves. A herd is wealth. One good animal can fetch more in trade than a month of hunting. And unlike wolves, humans lie. They pretend to pass through peacefully. They ask for help, for shelter, for directions, and then they take what they want. You've heard stories. A family ambushed in the night. Reindeer stolen under cover of a snowstorm. A young herder taken and never returned. In the most remote regions, there's no one to report to, no help to call for. The snow buries everything: footprints, blood, secrets. So you stay watchful. You keep a blade nearby when you sleep. You take turns on night watch, walking slow circles around the herd, listening for the smallest sound. A crunch of snow, a broken branch, a breath held too long. You don't trust easily, and when strangers come, you keep your hand near your knife. Still, you don't live in fear. Fear makes you careless. You live in readiness. The herd relies on you, and you rely on them in return. Their movements are your first warning. A sudden silence, a strange grouping, a flighty tension. You spend so many hours among them that you begin to feel their moods. You know when something's wrong, even if you can't see it yet. In return, you train the younger reindeer to trust you. You speak softly, move slowly, let them know your voice. You practice tethering them gently, reward them when they stay calm. A panicked reindeer is as dangerous as a predator. One bolt can set the whole herd running, straight into danger. The older animals are wiser. They remember past winters, past dangers. You watch where they look. You follow their gaze. You trust their instincts. Sometimes, despite your best efforts, you lose one. You find the tracks too late. Blood in the snow. Bits of fur scattered. A broken antler. The herd lowing in distress. You feel it like a bruise. You replay what you missed. What sign, what sound, what feeling you ignored. It eats at you. You tell yourself you'll do better next time. And you will. Because you have to. There's no pause in this life. No break from the vigilance. Even when the sky is clear and the snow soft and the reindeer calm, you know it lies just beyond sight. One storm, one wrong turn, one shadow too close. Your ancestors lived this way. They fought the same battles. They read the same tracks. Their knowledge flows through you now, not written in books, but passed down in firelit stories, in scars, in silent nods. You remember their words. Walk with your eyes open and your mouth closed. Trust the wind, but not the silence. The herd knows before you do. So you walk, you watch, you read the snow like a page. Each print, each branch, each tuft of fur is a sentence. The land writes its warnings clearly for those who know how to look. And every day, you sharpen your sight. Because out here, predators don't roar. They don't growl. They arrive. And whether it's fangs or fists or false smiles, you must be ready. For your herd, for your family, for yourself. The night is still, but not silent. The fire at the center of the yurt flickers low, casting long shadows that dance across the walls like spirits just out of reach. You sit cross-legged on the floor, wrapped in furs, hands resting on your knees. The others are quiet too, your family, your neighbors, even the smallest children. No one speaks. No one needs to. You all feel the same thing. The unease in your bellies, the weight in the air, the sense that something is tilted out of balance. The shaman sits beside the fire, his eyes closed. His breath moves slowly, in and out, like the rise and fall of wind over snow. On his chest hangs a circle of carved bone, etched with strange, looping mark sigils passed down from shaman to shaman, through generations too old to remember. His drum lies beside him, silent for now, a round hide stretched tight over bent wood, painted with symbols you only partly understand. Antlers, stars, a winding line that might be a river, or a snake, or both. No one calls the shaman for small things. Not for a scratch or a broken tool or a misplaced bundle. He is called when the world itself seems to falter, when the herd grows restless, and wanders, when illness clings to a child no medicine can shake, when the sky turns a color it shouldn't. Tonight, it's the reindeer. 3 lost, with no sign of predators, no trail in the snow, no reason for them to run. It's not natural. And when things are not natural, you turn to the spirits. You grew up with these beliefs not as superstition, but as part of the world's logic. The land is full of power, sometimes quiet, sometimes angry. Everything has a spirit. The river, the wind, the fire, even the bones of the animals you rely on. Your people say the ancestors ride the northern lights, watching, guiding, sometimes warning. You've heard the stories since before you could walk, of dreams that predict danger, of ravens who speak, of hunters saved by the whisper of a long-dead grandfather in a snowstorm. The shaman doesn't rush. He opens his eyes slowly and reaches for the drum. The first beat is soft, just a tap, then another. Then it builds, slow and steady, like a heartbeat waking up. You feel it in your chest before you hear it clearly. It thuds through the ground, through your ribs. The sound isn't just noise, it moves something inside you. He begins to chant. The words are old, some you recognize, many you don't. They flow like water, rise like smoke, circle like wind. They are not meant to be understood by the living. They are meant for the spirits. Smoke curls upward from the fire as he throws dried herbs into the flames. Sage, birch bark, sweetgrass. The scent is sharp and sweet, catching in your throat. The shaman sways now, slowly at first, then faster. The drum beat matches him, faster, louder. His voice changes, becomes rougher, deeper, sometimes almost animal. He shakes a rattle made of antler and beads and bone, and its sharp clack echoes through the yurt. This is how you call the spirits. Not with prayers, not with pleas, but rhythm, scent, motion, and sound. You create a space where the seen and the unseen can meet. You've seen it before, and yet each time it feels new. Sacred, a little frightening. You've heard the stories of shamans who went too deep and didn't come back quite the same. You've seen one collapse mid-ritual, waking hours later with frost rimmed in their hair, even though they never left the yurt. The spirit world is not gentle. It does not welcome trespassers. But it does sometimes grant answers if you know how to ask. The shaman's eyes roll back. His breathing changes. He is no longer entirely here. His voice speaks in bursts, different tones, as if more than one voice is speaking through him. He gestures to the fire, to the smoke, to the corner where a carved reindeer skull rests on a shelf. The ancestors are here now, he says. The spirits of the land, the spirits of the herd. They are watching. You don't look around. You don't want to see them. He begins to name things, places, people, questions. He asks why the reindeer left. Was it illness? A curse? An offense? He sings apologies on behalf of all of you for whatever wrong you might have committed without knowing. The burning of the wrong wood, the neglect of a ritual, the careless treatment of a bone. These things matter. They always have. There is a pause, sudden and deep. The drum falls silent. The shaman breathes heavily, shoulders trembling. Then he reaches for the bone rattle again and shakes it once hard. A sound cracks through the air like a frozen branch snapping. And he speaks. His voice is strange, now thin and distant. He says the herd wandered because they were afraid. Not of wolves or men, but of something deeper. A shift in the ground, a sickness in the water, a forgotten burial site nearby, disturbed when your sleds passed too close. The spirits of the dead were angered. They followed. They whispered to the herd. You feel the hair rise on your arms. You remember now the odd chill that passed through camp 3 nights ago. The strange dream your sister had of reindeer walking into the river. The fire that sputtered even with fresh kindling. Signs you hadn't put together until now. The shaman says a cleansing is needed. An offering. A return to the burial place, with food and smoke and song. The reindeer must be led past it again, this time with care. The spirits must be soothed, honored. Only then will the herd settle. He falls silent again. The drum lowers, the fire crackles softly. The air feels different, thinner, clearer, as if something has passed through and gone. The shaman sags, exhausted, sweat beads on his forehead. Someone passes him a cup of hot broth. He sips, eyes still unfocused. He doesn't speak for a long time. Later, you'll go with your father and a few others to prepare the offering. You'll gather clean branches, meat, milk, and tobacco. You'll tie red cloth to the trees around the burial place. You'll light fires and sing songs you barely remember learning. You'll thank the spirits and ask their forgiveness. You'll walk the reindeer past slowly, heads bowed, whispering to them to stay calm, to feel the balance returning. And maybe it will. Maybe the next night, the herd will sleep easily. The wind will settle. The fire will burn clean. And you'll feel something shift back into place. Something unseen, but real all the same. This is the world you live in. 1 foot in the snow, 1 in the spirit realm. Your life depends not just on food, shelter, and warmth, but on the will of the land and the old forces that shape it. To ignore them is to invite ruin. To honor them is to survive. And survival here is sacred. The cold is not a visitor. It's a fact of life. It arrives in silence and never truly leaves. Even in the briefest summer months, you feel its breath waiting just beneath the surface of the soil, coiled like a hidden snake, ready to rise again. When winter truly takes hold, it does not knock. It enters all at once. The temperature plummets so fast that the very air seems to crack. Your breath turns to ice the moment it escapes your lips. The inside of your nostrils sting. Eyelashes freeze together. A careless touch to metal tears away skin like bark from a tree. And yet, you must carry on. It can fall to -50 degrees Celsius, sometimes colder. Cold so sharp it hums in your ears. Cold that burns before it numbs. Cold that bites the tips of your fingers, even when you're layered in hide, wool, and fur. There's no room for hesitation. You don't think about how cold it is. You think about what needs doing, because stopping is dangerous. Stillness invites death. The sun disappears for weeks. Days stretch into twilight. You begin to lose your sense of time. What is morning when the sky stays dark? What is night when the fire is your only marker? You sleep when you're tired, rise when you're needed. The body adjusts, though the mind sometimes falters. You wake in the dark, eat in the dark, work in the dark. Light becomes a precious thing, a flicker of flame, a glimmer of moon through frozen cloud. The yurt becomes the center of life. It is more than shelter. It is sanctuary. Reindeer hides cover the walls. Snow is packed high around the base for insulation. A fire burns in the center, the smoke twisting through the smoke hole above. You learn to tend it carefully. Not too hot, or you'll burn through fuel too fast. Not too low, or the frost creeps in and stiffens your joints before dawn. Everyone gathers clothes. Children curled beside parents. Tools are repaired, clothes are stitched, dried meat is shared in silence. There is comfort in the closeness, even as tension lingers beneath the unspoken knowledge that a storm might rise at any time, that someone might fall sick, that the cold, relentless and patient, waits for a mistake. Food is never taken for granted. You eat what was stored, what was dried or smoked in warmer months. Meat from reindeer heart, tongue, liver. Broth boiled from bones. Fat is prized, hoarded, shared only when needed. You learn to chew slowly, to let the richness linger, to feed your strength 1 bite at a time. No waste is permitted. Even bones are carved into tools or tossed into the fire to crack for marrow. Water is a luxury. You melt snow in metal pots, careful not to let it freeze again before it's drunk. The sound of snow hissing against a hot pan is part of winter's rhythm. You ration carefully. Too much fire for water means not enough for warmth. Every flame is a balance. Outside, the world changes. Trees groan under the weight of snow. The ground becomes a hard, pale sheet. Footsteps don't crunch. They creak, groan, echo. Reindeer breathe out puffs of steam, their coats thick and glistening with frost. They dig through snow with their hooves, searching for lichen beneath the frozen crust. You help when you can, breaking ice, leading them to better ground. They trust you, and you trust them. Without them, you'd perish. Travel becomes dangerous. Visibility vanishes. A whiteout can descend in minutes, erasing sky from land, path from shadow. You wear snow goggles, slits cut into bone, or hide to shield your eyes from the glare. Even so, you squint. You keep your hands inside your sleeves. You don't let your skin touch the air for long. Still, you must move. The herd needs space, needs food, needs guiding. You walk or ride for hours at a time. You learn to feel the landscape with your feet, what is solid, what is hollow, where the wind has packed snow, and where it has left traps. You carry a staff to test the ground ahead. A single misstep could send you plunging through ice or into drift. When the wind rises, it howls like a thing alive. It claws at your hood, slants into your chest, slices through gaps in your clothing. Your voice vanishes into it. Your eyes water and freeze. You must keep walking. If you stop, you stiffen. If you stiffen, you fall. If you fall, you freeze. It's that simple. Frostbite is always near. You know the signs, the numbness that comes too fast, a skin that turns pale and waxy. You check yourself, and others often. Ears, noses, fingers. Children especially. You rub their hands between yours, breathe warm air into their mittens, wrap their feet in more fur. No one is left alone. Solitude in winter is a threat. Togetherness is survival. Stories help. At night, with the wind hammering the yurt walls, you listen to tales of hunters who tricked the snow spirits, of reindeer that outran the stars, of ancestors who lived through colder winters than this. Whether you believe them or not doesn't matter. They carry warmth, meaning, memory. They remind you that others have endured, and so can you. Some nights the sky clears. You step outside just for a moment. The cold bites instantly, but you ignore it. You look up. The stars shimmer like crushed glass, impossibly sharp. And then you see it, the aurora. Green, pink, white. Ribbons dancing silently across the sky. You feel something stir in your chest. Not warmth exactly, but wonder, reverence. You are small, but not lost. Alone, but not abandoned. There is beauty in the cold, as harsh as it is. It sculpts the world into strange shapes, hoarfrost on branches, ice fangs on the eaves of the yurt, snow piled like dunes. It silences everything but the most essential sounds. A reindeer bell, a breath, a distant howl. It teaches patience, endurance, precision, and always there is the knowledge that winter will end. It must end. The sun will return. Slowly at first, like a stranger creeping back after a long absence. A little light at the edge of the world. Then more. You will mark its return with fire, song, and silent gratitude. But until then, you endure. Because you were raised in this. You were taught by wind and snow and long dark hours. You were not made for ease. You were made for this, a life shaped by ice, sustained by fur and fire, held together by hands that do not tremble, even when the world freezes. This is what it means to survive a winter without end. You have spent months living with the rhythms of the tundra, the endless winters, the trust between you and your reindeer. But life here is never isolated. Beyond the endless white, beyond the cold that grips your bones, there is a world you cannot see, but you feel its presence, an invisible thread connecting your small wild home to vast, faraway powers. Trade is that thread. When the snow thaws and the land softens under your feet, you prepare for a journey unlike any other. You don your best furs, pack what pelts, antlers, dried meat, and hides you can spare. The caravan moves slowly, sleds creaking, reindeer pulling steady loads across frozen rivers and through dense forests that have long stood silent under ice. The journey will take days, sometimes weeks, depending on the conditions. You cross landscapes that seem endless, dotted only by the occasional weather-beaten hut or a tiny trading post. At last, you reach the Russian trading settlements. These are places of strange noises and strange people voices, speaking a language unfamiliar to your ears. The clang of iron tools, the scent of smoke and salt mingled in the air. Here, trade unfolds like a ritual. The Russian traders come bearing goods you cannot make or find yourself. Salt to preserve your food, iron tools to repair sleds and knives, beads for decoration, and sometimes cloth woven with colors that seem impossible in this stark world. You offer your pelts, prized for their softness and warmth, your antlers that can be carved into tools or sold as curios, and your dried meat, which carries the taste of the land and the long winters behind it. The traders appraise your goods carefully, measuring value not just in metal coins, though coins do pass hands, but in usefulness, necessity, and rarity. Salt is prized beyond measure. It is the difference between food that lasts and food that spoils, between hunger in winter and fullness. Iron tools mean you can mend broken sled runners or sharpen knives for the next hunt. Beads and colored cloth offer a rare chance to carry beauty in your clothing, small symbols of status or stories worn on your sleeves. Yet beneath this exchange lies something more complicated. Whispers float through the cold air words carried on the wind like dust stirred from the steppe. Whispers of taxes, of the distant Tsar, the ruler who lives far beyond the forests and tundra, in grand cities you can barely imagine. The Tsar's reach extends even here, through appointed officials, through promises and threats, through the very coins that pass hands in trade. Some among your people speak of the Tsar with suspicion. They see the traders not just as merchants, but as eyes and ears of a faraway power. The tax collectors follow soon after, demanding a share of your wealth, furs, meat, tools, sometimes even your own labor. Resistance is dangerous. The Tsar as soldiers are a force you rarely see, but often hear of men who impose order with an iron fist, who make sure the Tsar's commands are obeyed. The relationship is tangled, fragile. You rely on trade to survive, to replenish what the land cannot provide all year round. But the cost is high. The Tsar's taxes take from you what you have worked so hard to gather. And with every passing year, the Tsar's reach seems to grow longer, his demands more insistent. The traders themselves are complex figures, part businessmen, part diplomats, part emissaries of the Tsar. They live between worlds, fluent in multiple languages, skilled at reading the shifting allegiances of local clans and distant rulers alike. Sometimes they bring news from the cities, the politics of the Tsar's court, rumors of war or peace, new laws that might affect your people. Other times, their visits are brief and businesslike, focused on exchange and nothing more. You learn to navigate this world with care. Bartering here is not just about goods, it is about relationships. You show respect, offer hospitality. You listen closely, learning the language and customs of the traders so you can better protect your people's interests. You understand that survival depends not only on the strength of your herds and the harshness you endure, but also on how well you manage these delicate ties. There is power in this trade, but it is a power that demands vigilance. The Tsar's distant presence reminds you that your world is part of a larger empire, one that sees your land and your life through eyes far removed from the snow and silence. You are small in its vast reach, but not invisible. Back home, the goods brought by the traders become woven into daily life. Iron tools sharpened to precision make hunting easier, Salt preserves meat for the darkest days of winter. Beads decorate ceremonial clothing, signaling connection to a broader world. These things remind you that though you live in the frozen wild, you are connected to the pulse of history itself. Trade journeys become stories told by the fire. You recount the long days on the trail, the frozen rivers crossed, the wary negotiations in distant settlements. You tell of the Tsar's soldiers, of new taxes, of gifts and warnings carried on the wind. These stories remind the young to prepare, to respect the fragile balance between independence and submission. The Tsar's distant shadow shapes your future as surely as the cold shapes your days. You feel it in the steady march of time, in the ever-changing landscape of alliances, in the shifting weight of power carried on the sled runners that cross your land. But through it all, you endure. Because your life is a story of resilience of people who survive by reading the land, who thrive by understanding others, who find strength in the harshest conditions and the most distant ties. Trade is not just an exchange of goods. It is the pulse that connects your world to the Tsar's vast empire, a reminder that even in the coldest, most remote places, history is moving, carrying you forward like a sled pulled through snow. Imagine yourself standing on an endless plain blanketed in snow. The sky above is a heavy, pale gray so thick with clouds that the sun is just a dull glow behind the frozen veil. The wind has risen, whipping ice crystals into your face like shards of glass. Visibility is near zero. The world has vanished into a whiteout. You can't see your own hands in front of your face. The horizon, the trees, the ground all lost to swirling snow. It feels as if you are swallowed by the storm itself, isolated and small in the vast, frozen emptiness. But then, through the roar of the wind, you hear it. A clear, ringing tone, soft and bright, cutting through the storm like a beacon. Then another, a deeper, warmer chime. And another, sharper and quicker. The bells speak. You listen, and suddenly the world makes sense again. This is the language of the bells. Every reindeer in your herd wears a bell, each one carefully chosen, crafted, and tuned to carry a unique sound, not just noise, but a voice. A signature you know, as well as your own breath. In a land where snow can erase all sight, these bells are your lifeline, your guide, your way to find each other. The idea is simple but profound. Sound becomes sight. When visibility is perfect, you rely on your eyes to track the herd, watching for the flick of antlers, the shape of bodies against the snow. But in the harsh reality of the tundra, whiteouts can descend without warning. In these moments, the bells are the only markers, floating through the frozen air like stars in a clouded night sky. You become attuned to the nuances of these sounds. The bright, clear peal of one bell signals a young reindeer near the front of the herd. A slow, heavy clang tells you an older, more cautious animal is close by. The quicker jingle of a smaller bell may mean a calf is nearby, staying close to its mother. Each bell tells a story, and you know that story intimately. Over years, you learn to recognize each tone, each rhythm, each subtle variation that sets one bell apart from another. When a bell changes its tone, perhaps a crack in the metal, or a change in how it is tied, you notice immediately. It's like hearing a friend speak with a strange voice. You investigate. You fix what's broken. The herd's harmony depends on it. The sound of bells also carries warnings. A sudden silence in the midst of the jingling may mean danger ahead, a predator lurking, the herd startled and frozen. Or a frantic clanging can signal panic, a reindeer caught in ice. A sudden storm rolling in, a young calf lost and calling out. In this way, the bells become a language, rich with meaning beyond simple sound. You are constantly listening with your whole body, interpreting the signals as if the herd itself is speaking to you. In the depths of winter, when the wind howls and the world is a blur of white, you rely on this language more than ever. Your eyes strain through goggles made of bone or hide, your ears sharp despite the biting cold. You close the gap between you and the ringing notes, trusting your instincts and your knowledge of the bells to guide you back to the herd. Beyond the practical, the bells carry deep cultural significance. Each bell is more than a tool. It is part of your identity, your history, your connection to the land, and to your ancestors. The crafting of bells is a skill passed down through generations. Made from metals traded from distant lands or shaped by local hands, they are carefully designed to produce distinct tones. Sometimes, bells are decorated with carvings or painted with symbols that tell stories of legendary hunts, of spirits that guard the herd, or of seasons past and future. The bells are treasured, treated with respect and care. When the herd moves, the bells create a living symphony, a music of survival and belonging. You feel the rhythm in your bones as the bells jingle softly, a comforting reminder that you are not alone in this harsh world. On long journeys across frozen rivers and snowbound forests, the bells are a constant presence. They mark your path, signal your position, and strengthen the bonds between you and your reindeer. They become a form of communication that transcends words, a sound that holds memory, trust, and life itself. In moments of quiet, away from storms and travel, the bells can carry stories. Sitting by the fire in your yurt, you listen as elders speak of ancient times when bells were believed to hold magical powers. They say the ringing can ward off evil spirits, protect the herd from wolves, and even call blessings from the sky. Whether you believe these tales or not, the bells connect you to a spiritual world, linking past and present, earth and sky. The language of the bells teaches you patience and attentiveness. You learn to slow your mind and listen deeply, not just to hear, but to understand. In the constant movement of the herd and the ever-changing tundra, the bells are your steady compass. Sometimes, when the wind is still and the snow lies silent, you close your eyes and let the bells speak to you. Each note is a word, each jingle a sentence in the ongoing story of life on the tundra. The language of the bells is quiet but powerful, subtle but unbreakable. It is a reminder that even in the harshest, most isolating landscapes, connection is possible. That sound can carry you through darkness and cold. That your herd, your family, your community is never truly lost. This is how you find your way home. In the vast, unforgiving tundra, where the wind slices sharp and the cold is a constant companion, life depends on more than just the strength of the herd or the skills of hunters. It depends on the women. The women of the camp are the heart and the soul, the keepers of survival, the quiet architects of life itself. You might think the harshness of this world would leave little room for anything but the bare essentials. But here, everything depends on the women. They are not just caretakers or helpers. They are leaders, teachers, warriors of endurance, and the steady hands that hold the camp together when the cold bites hardest. While the men travel far, tracking reindeer or traveling to barter pelts with traders, the women remain behind, managing the camp with a skill and strength forged by generations of necessity. Their work is endless, yet they carry it with a quiet dignity, knowing that nothing survives without their care. The camp itself is a living organism, a delicate balance of tasks and timing, and women are its stewards. They oversee the yurts, the circular tents made from reindeer hides stretched over wooden frames, ensuring they are strong against the wind, warm against the cold. When the wind howls like a beast outside, it is women who adjust the coverings, repair tiers, and pack snow against the sides to seal out the frost. Inside the yurts, women prepare hides with practiced hands. The process is painstaking, scraping away fat and flesh, stretching and softening the skins to make them supple and strong. These hides become everything: clothing, footwear, sled covers, and more. Each piece carries the mark of care and expertise, a connection between you and the animals who gave their lives. Children learn from the women. Long before they can walk, children sit close to their mothers or grandmothers, absorbing stories and lessons that prepare them for life on the tundra. Women teach them the names of plants that bloom briefly in summer, how to spot safe water sources, and the language of the reindeer bells. These lessons are not just knowledge, they are survival skills passed down in stories, songs, and quiet moments by the fire. Storytelling is a sacred art. In the long winters, when the sun is gone and darkness clings to every corner, women gather children and elders alike to share tales. These stories carry wisdom from ancestors who faced colder winters and fiercer storms. They remind everyone of the land's power and the spirits that watch over the herd. The stories bring comfort, strength, and a sense of belonging. Women manage food with precision and care. They prepare dried meat, bones boiled into broth, and the precious fat that sustains you through the hardest days. Every morsel is rationed carefully, nothing wasted. Women know which parts of the reindeer provide the most nourishment, how to store food to last through the endless winter, and when to share a rare treat. Their knowledge keeps hunger at bay. They also maintain tools and clothing. When a sled runner breaks or a seam rips in a fur coat, it is women who repair it, sewing with sinew and patching with hide. These repairs can mean the difference between life and death on a journey, and women take their work seriously. Their hands are steady and strong, shaped by years of practice. While men are away hunting or trading, women run the camp's social and political life. They settle disputes, organize gatherings, and make decisions about the herd's movements when circumstances demand quick action. Their voices carry weight because they hold the knowledge of everyday life and the well-being of the community. The cold is relentless, and illness or injury can strike at any time. Women care for the sick and injured, using remedies made from local herbs and the wisdom of generations. They know how to warm a frostbitten hand, soothe aching muscles, and nurse a fever through the long nights. Their care is patient and tireless. Sometimes the challenges they face are more than physical. The loneliness of long winters and the burden of responsibility weigh heavily. Yet women find strength in one another, in shared tasks, in whispered conversations late into the night, in the laughter of children playing despite the cold. The bond among women is a lifeline. They teach younger girls not just survival skills, but the deeper lessons of endurance, hope, and resilience. They pass down the sacred knowledge of the land and the herd, ensuring that every generation is ready to face whatever comes. The camp's survival depends on this circle of women, an unbroken chain of care and courage. Without them, the cold would claim more lives. Without their hands and hearts, the stories would end and the herd would falter. You come to understand that in this harsh wilderness, strength is not measured only by the size of a man's catch or the speed of a reindeer as run. True strength is found in the women who hold the camp together, who nurture life when the world is frozen and unforgiving. Their work is silent but vital, their presence a steady flame in the storm. And as you live among them, you learn that this is what it means to survive, not just to endure the cold, but to thrive, because of the women who keep the fire burning. Out here, where the world is frozen and help is measured not in minutes, but in days or even weeks of travel, there are no doctors, no hospitals, no medicines delivered in bottles. There is only the land and the wisdom handed down through generations about how to heal using what the ice and earth provide. You learn quickly that sickness and injury are as real a threat as the cold itself. Frostbite, fevers, cuts, and infections can turn deadly without care. But here, survival depends on more than modern remedies. It depends on understanding the balance between ice and fire, on using the land's gifts wisely, and on faith. When frostbite creeps in, when fingers, toes, ears, and noses begin to tingle, then numb, then burn with a pain that goes beyond cold, you know the signs and the urgency. The skin turns pale and waxy, sometimes blistered. Time is precious. You do not panic. You use what you have. Snow is your first healer. It might seem strange to treat frostbite with ice, but gently massaging the affected area with clean, soft snow draws heat back into the skin slowly. You avoid sudden warmth that can cause more damage. Then you warm the area with your breath or against warm skin, careful not to burn or thaw too quickly. In extreme cold, fire is your closest ally and your greatest risk. A fire burns away frostbite if used too near, but controlled and distant heat helps. You keep the injured close to the hearth, wrapped in layers of fur and hides to restore circulation gradually. When someone falls ill with fever, often from infection or exhaustion, reindeer fat becomes a precious medicine. It is rich and nourishing, warming the body from within. A spoonful may be given carefully, mixed with broth or melted into tea. This fat sustains strength, combats chills, and provides energy when food is scarce or appetite is lost. Herbs harvested in the brief summer months hold special powers. You collect lichen, willow bark, and other plants with healing properties, drying and storing them carefully for winter use. Lichen poultices, made by softening the dried moss and applying it to wounds, act as antiseptics and soothe inflammation. Willow bark, a natural source of salicin, helps reduce fever and ease pain, much like modern aspirin. The knowledge of these cures is sacred, passed down in stories, in quiet lessons by the fire, in hands showing younger generations how to prepare remedies and when to apply them. You learn to read the signs of sickness as carefully as you read the weather or the movements of the herd. Prayers and rituals also play a role. Healing is not just physical, it is spiritual. Elders call on the spirits of the land, the ancestors, and the forces of nature. Incantations are whispered, smoke from sacred herbs curls in the air, and the fire crackles with a rhythm that feels like hope. When wounds are sustained, cuts from hunting tools, scrapes from ice, punctures from antlers, the process is immediate and precise. Blood must be stopped, the injury cleaned and dressed quickly to prevent infection. You use boiled water to cleanse wounds, poured carefully over skin to wash away dirt and bacteria. Then, lichen poultices or other herbal dressings are applied, wrapped tightly with strips of hide or cloth. There is no room for weakness or delay. The cold itself fights against healing, and any infection can become deadly in days. You check wounds daily, changing dressings, watching for signs of fever or spreading redness. The entire camp pitches in, knowing that one person's survival depends on everyone's vigilance. In some cases, the severity of illness or injury means travel is impossible. The sick must be tended in place, cared for by family and neighbors. The camp slows down. The work of hunting, herding, and trading pauses or lessens, shifting to accommodate the needs of the vulnerable. You see strength in this care, strength not of muscle or weapon, but of compassion and endurance. The people who stay behind are just as vital to survival as those who travel or hunt. Without their knowledge, their healing hands, the community could not endure. Sometimes illness strikes children. Their small bodies are fragile in the cold, and fevers can rise quickly. Mothers and grandmothers watch over them tirelessly, feeding broth, warming small hands, singing lullabies to soothe restless nights. These moments feel delicate, but the care is fierce. Even when hope seems thin, you learn that healing is possible. The land gives what it can, and you make the most of it. Recovery is slow, patience essential. The camp adjusts. You share the burden. You find strength in togetherness. This way of healing is not just survival. It is a testament to the resilience of a people who live at the edge of the world. They face illness and injury, not with fear or surrender, but with knowledge, courage, and a deep connection to the land that sustains them. In this frozen wilderness, where the line between life and death is thin, every cured wound, every cooled fever, every healed frostbite is a victory. It is proof that even without doctors or hospitals, the human spirit can endure, adapt, and thrive. Because here, healing is a dance between ice and fire, between the earth's gifts and the hands that know how to use them. It is a reminder that survival is not just about strength, it is about wisdom, care, and a quiet hope that keeps the fire burning through the longest night. The Siberian sky is a master of sudden change and unpredictable force that shapes every moment of your life here. One minute, it stretches wide and clear above you, a vast dome of pale blue or gentle gray, holding the weak sun like a promise of calm and safety. The light feels soft on your skin, the wind barely stirs the snow around you, and the world seems still. You breathe easier. You tell yourself that today, the journey will be steady, that the herd will move without trouble, and that the cold, sharp as it is, will remain manageable. But here, on this vast frozen land, the weather is not loyal to your plans. It does not care for your wishes or your need for predictability. The sky can change in moments, without warning or mercy. It can turn from calm to fury, so fast that it feels like the very air itself has snapped. You have learned this truth the hard way. One instant, the wind lies still, and the snow sparkles peacefully in the sun. Then, almost without notice, a sudden gust rises, carrying with it flakes of ice and powder that sting your face. The wind howls, growing louder and colder, as if the sky itself has opened and breathed out a storm. In a matter of minutes, the world around you is swallowed by a whiteout. The snow blurs your vision, driven by cutting gusts that swirl in every direction. Trees vanish behind a curtain of white. The ground beneath your feet disappears beneath shifting drifts. The horizon, once a distant line, ceases to exist. It feels as though the storm has erased the world. You stand frozen, your breath crystallizing on your eyelashes, your fur-covered hands numb and stiff. The biting cold rushes through the layers of clothing you have wrapped yourself in, sneaking into every gap. Visibility is reduced to a few feet, sometimes even less. You cannot see your reindeer, your sled, or even the path you had been following just moments ago. This is the true danger of the tundra, a storm from nowhere that strips away every sense, every guide, every hope of direction. To be caught far from the camp in such a storm is to face the very real possibility of death. But survival here is never about surrendering to fear. It is about trust. Trust in your skills, your instincts, and above all, trust in your reindeer. Your reindeer are not mere beasts of burden. They are your guides, your partners in this frozen wilderness. They sense changes in the wind and the snow's texture long before you do. Their sharp hooves and sure footing carry you across treacherous ground, even when your eyes cannot see what lies ahead. As the storm envelops you, you listen intently for the ringing of the herd's bells, the familiar, distinct tones that cut through the roaring wind like signals in the fog. Each bell tells you where a particular reindeer is, whether near or far, moving or still. You have learned to hear these sounds as a language, one that guides you home when sight fails. With gloved hands gripping the reins tightly, you lean forward on your sled, letting your body move with the rhythm of the animals pulling it. You feel the subtle pulls and shifts in their movement, the way they adjust their steps on the snow's hidden surfaces. Your trust is complete. Sometimes, when the storm is at its worst, you close your eyes briefly, relying on the herd to carry you through. You focus on your breathing slow and steady to calm your racing mind. Every sound becomes a guidepost, the snap of ice beneath hooves, the jingle of bells, the distant crack of frozen branches. You navigate through this invisible world with nothing but your knowledge of the land and the instincts of your reindeer. When the storm's fury seems endless, you search for shelter, a hollow behind a snowdrift, a thicket of trees bowed under ice, and snow, or a shallow cave where the wind cannot reach. You bundle yourself tightly in layers of fur and hide, sitting close to your reindeer who huddle around you, sharing body heat. If you have a fire, you tend it with care. Flames are precious in the storm, both for warmth and for hope. But the wind can easily snuff them out or spread the fire dangerously. You keep it low, steady, feeding it just enough to keep the frost at bay without wasting precious fuel. The hours stretch long. The storm's roar is relentless, but you endure. Because you know this is what life demands: the patience to wait, the resilience to persist, the faith to believe that the world will clear again. Eventually, as suddenly as it began, the storm passes. The wind dies down to a gentle breeze. The clouds break apart, revealing a pale sun that hangs low over the snow. The silence that follows is profound. You look around and see the world transformed: snowdrifts piled high, untouched and sparkling like glass under the weak light. Tracks left by hooves and sled runners mark the path you have taken through the storm, a reminder of your passage. You breathe deeply, feeling the weight of what you have endured. You thank your reindeer quietly, your partners who never wavered, who carried you through the worst. This is life in the tundra, a life of constant challenge, where the sky can change from calm to chaos in the blink of an eye, where each journey holds the risk of being lost, frozen, or stranded, but also a life of trust in animals, in the land, in yourself. You prepare once more, readying your sled and harnessing your reindeer for the next leg of the journey. You check the bells, tighten the straps, and steady your nerves, because storms will come again. They always do. Yet, with every storm, you grow stronger, wiser. You learn the subtle signs that precede a whiteout: the shift in the air, the smell of ice, the pattern of clouds on the horizon. You become a part of the land's rhythm, moving with it rather than against it. And above all, you understand that in this frozen wilderness, survival depends on the unbreakable bond between you and your reindeer. They are your guides when sight fails, your guardians when the storm rages. Together, you face the storms from nowhere, and together, you endure. In the frozen expanses where the wind howls like a restless spirit and the snow blankets the earth in silence, every life is precious. Every breath taken under the vast Siberian sky is a gift earned by enduring the harshness of this unforgiving land. In this place, the reindeer are more than just animals. They are the very essence of survival, a sacred bond between humans and nature. When a reindeer dies, whether from natural causes or through the hunter's hand, it marks not merely the loss of life, but the beginning of an ancient ritual, a ceremony as old as the tundra itself. The death of a reindeer resonates through the camp like a solemn song. You feel it in the quiet that falls over the yurts, in the slower movements of those who gather, and in the reverent care with which each part of the animal is treated. The loss is personal and communal, a moment to remember that life here is fragile and interwoven with respect and gratitude. After the initial mourning and practical work of butchering and preserving the meat, your attention turns to the antlers, those majestic, branching crowns that reindeer grow and shed with each passing year. Antlers are much more than bones. They are symbols of strength, renewal, and the spirit of the tundra itself. Their significance runs deep, rooted in both the physical and spiritual worlds. You carefully clean the antlers, scraping away remnants of flesh and smoothing rough patches with tools shaped from bone and stone. Each antler is unique, a map of ridges and points that tells stories of the reindeer's life, its age, its battles, its journey through seasons of snow and sun. Handling them, you feel a connection to that life, a respect for the creature that gave so much. The ritual that follows varies between families and communities, but there are common threads woven throughout. Sometimes the antlers are taken to sacred groves, ancient trees, standing like sentinels against the sky, their branches heavy with frost and silence. You carry the antlers with care, wrapped in soft reindeer hide, moving slowly so as not to disturb the balance of the land. At the grove, the antlers are placed among the branches, or set at the base of the tree. You step back, hands folded, and whisper thanks, not just for the meat and warmth the reindeer provided, but for the spirit that lingers in those antlers. It is believed the trees hold a passageway between this world and the next, a place where the animal's soul can journey to rest or be reborn. This act is a prayer, a pact between the living and the dead, a reminder that the land gives and takes in an endless cycle. It is also a way to honor the herd's continued protection, asking the spirits to watch over those still roaming the tundra. In other cases, the antlers are not left whole, but transformed into something new, a medicine, a tool, a symbol of healing power. The hardest and densest part of the antlers is ground down painstakingly with stones, crushed until it becomes a fine powder. This powder, mixed with fat and herbs gathered in the short summer months, forms balms and salves. You apply these balms to aching joints and sore muscles, believing that the antler's strength passes into your body, reinforcing your resilience against the cold and weariness. The powdered antler is also thought to have spiritual healing qualities, helping to restore balance when the body or mind is troubled. This medicine is precious, and only those taught through generations know how to prepare it properly. Throughout these rituals, the air is filled with a sacred quiet, broken only by the crackle of the fire or the soft rustle of dried herbs. Elders gather the young ones close, sharing stories and songs about the reindeer whose antlers they honor. They tell of great leaders among the herd, animals that braved fierce winters, guided lost travelers, or escaped danger with cunning and grace. These stories do more than entertain, they teach. They instill in children a deep respect for the reindeer and a sense of continuity, linking each generation to those before and those yet to come. The antlers hanging on the trees or stored carefully in the camp are reminders of these lessons, tangible connections to a history lived in the cold and snow. You watch as children trace the curves of the antlers with small fingers, their eyes wide with wonder and curiosity. In these moments, you feel the weight of responsibility. These rituals are not just about the past, but about preparing the future, ensuring that knowledge, respect, and reverence for the land and its creatures endure. The ritual also strengthens the bonds within the community. Everyone participates in some way, whether it is the women preparing the hides and medicines, the men assisting in the hunt and transport, or the elders guiding the ceremonies. This shared experience unites you, reminding you that survival here is a collective effort, reliant on respect and cooperation as much as on strength and skill. At night, after the ceremony, the camp gathers around the fire. The sky is clear, the stars sharp and cold above. You hold a piece of antler, smooth from years of handling, and feel its cool weight in your hands. You think about the cycle of life, the growth and shedding of antlers, the turning of the seasons, the endless rhythm of nature that carries you through. You understand, more deeply than words can say, that these rituals are not mere tradition. They are lifelines. They keep you connected to the animals, to the land, to your ancestors, and to each other. They remind you that every reindeer's life is sacred, every antler a symbol of hope, endurance, and renewal. The ritual of the antlers teaches patience, respect, and humility. It teaches that death is not an end, but part of a greater cycle, that the spirit of the reindeer lives on in the land, the trees, and the people who honor it. And as you prepare for another winter, another migration, you carry this ritual in your heart, knowing it will guide you through the coldest nights and the hardest days. The antlers are not just bones. They are the pulse of the tundra, the voice of the herd, and the spirit of survival itself. The cold is creeping in faster now. The sun, once bright and bold in the endless summer sky, has started its slow retreat toward the horizon. The long days shorten, the light growing thin and fragile like a fading ember. You feel it in your bones, a subtle shift in the air, the sharpness that wasn't there before. Winter is coming. Tonight, You sit by the last campfire of the year. The fire burns low but steady, its orange glow flickering across the faces gathered close. Around you, the camp moves with a quiet purpose, the final preparations before the great migration begin again. The yurts are packed away or reinforced. Sleds are checked and loaded. The reindeer graze near the edge of the frozen tundra, their breath rising in thick clouds, their bells jangling softly in the dusk. You sit wrapped in fur, hands warming by the fire, eyes tracing the darkening landscape beyond the flickering flames. The vast tundra stretches out like a sleeping giant, silent and vast, beneath the sky streaked with pinks and purples. The wind carries a chill that hints at the storms to come, the harsh months ahead. This fire is more than warmth. It is a symbol of final moment of stillness before the relentless movement begins again. It holds the stories, the memories, the voices of everyone who has gathered here. It is a sanctuary against the cold and the darkness, a circle of light in a world that will soon be white and silent. You think about the herd, the thousands of reindeer that have sustained your people through generations. They are restless tonight, sensing the change. Their eyes are bright and alert, muscles coiled like springs ready to leap. You know the long journey ahead, across frozen rivers, through forests buried deep in snow, over plains where the wind will bite like a living thing. But the herd is ready. You are ready. This is the only life you know. The endless cycles of migration, survival, loss, and renewal. The rhythms of the land, the herd, the fire. It is a life carved from ice and wind, shaped by generations who have learned to live with the unforgiving cold rather than against it. The fire crackles and pops, sending sparks swirling into the darkening sky. You watch as they drift upward, tiny stars fleeting and bright against the gathering night. Each spark feels like a memory, a story told by your ancestors around fires like this one. Tales of harsh winters survived, of journeys that tested every ounce of strength and courage, of the deep bond between human and reindeer that makes this life possible. The warmth of the fire seeps into your skin, chasing away the chill for a moment. Around you, faces are quiet, reflective. The children lean against their mothers, eyes heavy with the weight of the season's end. Elders speak softly, their voices low with meaning and remembrance. You listen to the crackle of the fire and the distant chilling of bells, the steady breathing of the herd, the soft murmur of voices. These sounds blend into a comforting chorus, a lullaby for the land before the long journey begins anew. Tonight, there are no words needed to explain what lies ahead. The migration is not just a journey. It is a way of life, a test of endurance, a sacred pact with the land and the animals. It is the thread that ties the past to the present, the living to the spirits. You stare into the fire and see reflections of yourself, the hunter, the herder, the guardian of a fragile world. You feel the weight of responsibility and the fierce pride that comes with it. The firelight dances in your eyes, and you make a silent promise to protect the herd, to honor the land, to carry forward the traditions that have kept your people alive through centuries of cold and hardship. Outside the camp, the wind rises, carrying the scent of pine and snow. The first stars appear, bright and steady. The aurora shimmers faintly on the horizon, ribbons of green and pink weaving silently across the sky. You breathe deeply, filling your lungs with the sharp, clean air. You know that soon the fire will be packed away, the sleds harnessed, and the herd led once more into the frozen wild. But for now, you sit by the last campfire of the year holding the warmth, the stories, the memories close. Because this life, harsh as it is the only one you trust. And as the flames flicker low and the night deepens, you find peace in that truth. Thanks so much for joining me on this journey through the incredible life of Siberian reindeer herders. From the biting cold to the sacred rituals, the unbreakable bond between people and reindeer reveals a world built on resilience, respect, and a deep connection to nature. If you enjoyed this deep dive into a life shaped by ice, fire, and tradition, be sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you won't miss any future videos. There are plenty more immersive stories coming your way, each one exploring fascinating histories, cultures, and ways of life you won't find anywhere else. Feel free to drop a comment below to share your thoughts or ask any questions about the herders, their rituals, or anything else you want to explore together. And if you want to support the channel even more, consider liking the video or sharing it with friends who love history and nature. Thanks again for watching and being part of this journey. Until next time, stay curious, stay kind, and take care out there in your own adventures. See you soon.